This will define everything for the Philadelphia 76ers. No, it is not whether or not they will draft Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe. No, it is not what they will do in free agency. It simply comes down to what is the status of the big fella, Joel Embiid. We are now 6 weeks removed from the news that he did get another arthroscopic surgery on his knee there and still without an update from this Philadelphia 76ers team. I want to talk a little bit about the big picture for what this means, and I know the automatic reaction from many of you in the comments, and I hear you, believe me, is I'm done with Embiid. It is time to move on. I need you to walk with me in this video for why there is simply not a way where you can go down that pathway here. Now, to dive into the initial story here, I do want to start off with, of course, this tweet coming on April 11th, the official announcement that the Sixers say Joel Embiid underwent his arthroscopic surgery on his knee today and will be reevaluated in 6 weeks. Now, we have not seen any sort of news, any sort of updates regarding the him being looked at again or any change in status here. And to kind of lay out the full timeline for what this means for Embiid and the Sixers, that of course April 11th being when the surgery did take place, May 23rd, so we were past that point now, 6 weeks out. We'll be 8 weeks out on June 6th, 12 weeks out on July 4th, 4 months out on August 11th, and 5 months out on September 11th there, and that is when training camp will begin to ramp up there. October 1st being the training camp started last year at least, so right around that same time frame there. Now, it did not take an advanced eye to watch Joel Embiid last year and tell that he did not look like the best version of himself. And even when we have all these factors, talking about the growth of Tyrese Maxey, the addition of Paul George, Jared McCain's emergence, holding the third pick in the draft, it is all built around Joel Embiid. And when thinking about the factors, the likelihood of winning an NBA championship, it basically all falls on having, at worst, a top 8 NBA player. That is the reality of the NBA. It is a star-driven league in a way that no other professional sport truly is. Sure, you can make the case in the NFL with a star quarterback is probably the closest comparison there, but in that same situation, we've seen defense win championships, that we've seen the Eli Mannings of the world be kind of carried to championships with no disrespect. I was rooting for the Giants in that Super Bowl against the Patriots, actually, but nonetheless, to not lose my point here, the NBA doesn't quite play that way, that you do need your star to be a star when the lights are the brightest, and to be completely upfront here, we have not seen that be the case with Joel Embiid, with health being the largest reason why. Now, why I say that there is no world in which you can just break up with Joel Embiid is that at this current moment is the commitment has been made here, that you have handed this dude the money, and for just the trade Joel Embiid conversations, every other team around the NBA sees the exact same things that we see, that they know that he's recovering from knee surgery. They know there hasn't been an update here. They've seen what he looks like on the court, and this is becoming a pattern to this point game. They know how many games that he played last year. They saw the way that he looked move around the floor, and all of that comes into play when we're talking about maximizing an asset, which is a Daryl Morey phrase and something that is incredibly important to him for sure, and there simply is not a way to kind of come out on top here. Now, why I think we can still be okay with things here is the grass is greener than ever before. When you think about life post Joel Embiid, it's looked dark for quite some time. There was not really a what is next. Are we looking at another process? Is this a full rebuild? And I don't think we are heading down that path whatsoever. That I don't think a backcourt duo of Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain in itself is a championship contender, but it's certainly a start. And then you factor in guys like Quentin Grimes, guys like Justin Edwards, whoever that third pick in the draft ends up being, whether it is Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe or Concanipple or whoever the option may be, whoever they do land in the draft with that pick, you're beginning to form this core. Now, with all that being said, this team is still built to compete right now, and you do have win now pieces in place. And to take a little bit of a look at the multi-year cap sheet here, I think you can kind of see how this all comes together. So when speaking about the commitment overall, look at that monstrous contract from Joel Embiid right up top there. That those are some massive dollar figures connected going all the way out to the 28-29 season, which is a player option. So at minimum, you're looking at 4 more years with Joel, with the 5th year being a player option. Looking at Paul George, the same conversation, that he's $49 million on the books this year. We got 3 more seasons with Paul George in addition to that player option, or I'm sorry, it's showing 2024. So this past season as that first column. So with Joel, that 3 seasons plus the player option. Paul George, 2 seasons with the player option. Those are guys that they are committed to. And if it is a world where you're absolutely done with these guys, you want to move on, we're talking about adding assets to get off that contract. We've seen teams do it before. The Sixers themselves did it with the Al Horford conversation. that was a contract that was a mistake, and the only way out of it was to pay to get off it. And what happened with that specific draft pick? That is why we were all clenching and praying that the Sixers draft pick fell within that top 6. And thank you to Daryl Morey for throwing a top 6 protection, because neither the Thunder or the Sixers would have expected that could have remotely fallen into it. But lo and behold, the basketball gods had other plans, and luckily the Sixers did get that pick back. But when using that as a lesson, you can't, to a bigger extent, you'd be doing this. You're paying way more to get off a contract like Joel Embiid with $200 million still on it than you were for Al Horford, who turned out to still somehow be a serviceable NBA player and contribute to the Celtics winning a championship there. But the point being here that it's a losing battle if you're doing that. You're getting off the talent. You're making your team worse. And sure, even if you are Joel is, a cancer to this team and it's never going to work around him and all these kind of conversations, you're still digging into your future by adding things to even make this work. And it's also important to note that with the NBA trade rules, you got to bring back something in the vicinity of that same salary here. So you can't just dump a guy. There is no waiving max players in the NBA or anything like that. You're stuck with this to an extent. And with all that being said, you still kind of need the guy that, with all this, with Paul George, with Jared McCain, Ace Bailey, we run down the list of the positives that are still there with this Sixers team. Who is the superstar? And when you think about Daryl Morey thinks in percentages. Philadelphia fans do not, to say the least there. But when making the gamble and the bet of what is your highest percentage to a championship, it all is on Joel Embiid staying healthy for one playoff run. I understand that the law of insanity says that you're trying things over and over and asking for different results. It's insane. But the Sixers don't have a better route than that. There simply isn't. And even if this is to blow up, let's say the worst case scenario here, that Joel does not look healthy this year, Paul George can't return to form or be closer to himself, you still got to give it a chance this year. And why is that the case? Because the price to get off these contracts goes down the closer to the end that they are. That it is a way less of a deal to opposing franchises if you're paying to take on 2 years of a guy rather than 4 years of a guy, or 3 years of a guy rather than 5 years of a guy, or whatever the conversation may be there. With this specific case, you do give it a run with this core and see what happens. That even to defend Daryl Morey a little more, we don't have a sample size to say that the big three of Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey did not work. We did not see enough of it to declare that one way or another, and now you do have added pieces surrounding them to help this team. So the only real pathway for the Sixers organization is to give it a chance this year, man. Is it ideal? Should we have the utmost confidence that Joel bounces back? It's totally fair to have the concerns at this point. But I don't see a route in which there's any other better option than just hoping that is the case. Now, for what it's worth, when trying to dig into what Joel is up to, I cannot confirm this completely, but we did have this tweet here. Shout out to @Kyle Magnum here, or Mangum, and he says, update, Joel Embiid is hooping and playing in water parks on vacation. I don't know if this is current or at this current point. We do see a little bit of a brace on the knee there, and he is by a basketball court. So it fits the bill here. It certainly is Joel. It's just when the picture is taken here. So maybe he's up and moving and doing just fine. But I guess we got to, hope that is the case there. Ultimately, I don't expect much from this Sixers organization when it comes to updates. For starters, I mentioned this before, they've kind of cleaned house on all the PR and communications guys, all the people that I've had contact with internally in the organization there, which was a surprise. And the other part of things is Joel, we know, has been very cautious and, very personal about the information that he gets out. He is not a guy that wants these medical records. That in itself is why we get these sort of cryptic messages on the injury. Now, I would push back and disagree with this, that I think I understand wanting to keep your medicals private, but you're a professional athlete and in the public eye. That's sort of just how things work. And unfortunately, that's directly tied to your profession here, that when you're hurt, that's something that has to be put on the table. So it does bother me to an extent that that's how Joel views things. But the bottom line is you still got to respect a guy's well wishes there. But for this specific situation, even if we are getting the most glowing of reports of Joel Embiid is bouncing back even better than expected, that Joel Embiid is moving like he is 23 again, are any of us going to really buy that until we see it out on the floor? That's the only real qualifier, or only real, sample size that we will have in front of us that we can buy into. So for now, it is hold your breath, hope for the best, and continue getting through these playoffs, or continue getting through this offseason, as the Sixers didn't even qualify for the playoffs there. But for this Sixers team overall, yes, we can talk about all the factors around the edge. But at the end of the day, this era is still the Joel Embiid era. This is still built around Can we put a winning roster around this guy? And now the conversation has shifted a little bit less out of the belief in that to a little bit less in the belief in Joel himself. Can his body take one of these playoff runs? And the only option the Sixers have is to gamble that he can if the stars are aligned correctly here. We ultimately see whether or not that is the case or not. You can kind of dive in, and I did want to pull up this. Shout out to my guy Yossi Goslin, who I have brought on for a couple different clips here. He did print out kind of and did an awesome breakdown more in depth of the Sixers salary cap. You can kind of see that the money's a little bit tight this summer when looking at all these options here. And again, I do totally recommend you guys checking out his full stream that he went a little bit more in depth in all this. But truthfully, we are looking outside of that third pick at really two more additions to this team. And we will see ultimately how things shape out. There's still conversations to be had about Yabusele, who getting the third pick certainly did not help the outlook for retaining him. But I am really curious to see what his market sort of looks like here. They do have non-guarantees, and guys like Ricky Council, Adem Bona is non-guaranteed as well. But I would be pretty surprised if he's not back in a Sixers uniform next year. Don't feel quite the same way about Ricky Council, as I certainly could see him end up being a cap casualty there. But you do have guys like Justin Edwards, which is a very promising and very team-friendly deal at $1.9 million there. There is reasons to be excited about this roster beyond Joel Embiid, but it does hinge on the big fella for how high the ceiling of his team could ultimately get. But do want to hear from you guys in the comments. Are you in the same spot with Joel? Are you frustrated? Is there anything that Joel or the Sixers could say that could increase your optimism or belief that he could have one playoff run in him? That's all I want to see. I am sick of seeing all the posts and all the memes of things like this, of the Eastern Conference playoffs appearance. And by the way, in this Pardon My Take, which no hate on Pardon My Take, I do listen in once in a while, they spelled appearances wrong twice in this particular meme that they threw up here, so did want to highlight that. And I will also note that conference finals have legitimately never been any sort of measuring stick for any sort of NBA player until Joel Embiid. He's the only guy that sort of that gets stuck to there, but I do want that meme to die so desperately there. So Joel, I do hope there is just one healthy season, one healthy playoffs. That's all we're asking for in Philadelphia, and I do think he's going to have the horses to run with him this year if things do align correctly. So still a lot of offseason to get through, still a lot of updates that hopefully we receive regarding the big fella, but a little bit concerning, I would say, that we've got nothing, radio silence to this point. So let me know what you guys think about all that. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. If you have not already, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like on this video here. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.